Something fun to deal with here. This is a WPC-089 MPU. I don't know what game it was in. It came without a game ROM, so I've installed my WPC DMD test ROM, which you can pick up from Planetary Pinball's website. This MPU was sent with an indication that switch 15 is inoperative, and that is true, but it's not just switch 15 that's inoperative. It had some corrosion damage, which I've abated here, and it got underneath these, or two of these connectors, so I've fixed that also. I've installed NVRAM. This is standard procedure now, the capacitor there and the header pins. Well, let me show you what happens. Just for data point here, I'm going to close column 2, row 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are all working properly. But if I try column 1, row 1, I get this ground short, row 1. And further testing indicated that if I hold down the column button, so column 1, and any row, it indicates a ground short for the whole row. Now that's not entirely true, but the game software is doing the best that it can. The problem here is with column 1, and well, I wish I had a logic probe connected here because I would probe the outputs of the ULN 2803 here, but I would guess that the outputs of that one are stuck. Just a moment. Well, I did have a logic probe attached. I always have it attached to my bench. Holy smoke. Anyway, here's how you test. This is a quick test for whether or not the column drives are working correctly. So that is a normal column drive indication with your logic probe. That was column 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Why do I want to say blast off? And here's column 1, and you can see that is stuck low. And the way the switch matrix works in WPC games is this 2803 pulses a column low, and then if that low signal is seen on a return on one of the drive signals, the row signals, then the game knows that a switch is closed. So again, this is pulsing low all the time. So it's getting a return from every column in the row. So it thinks that there's a row short. So this 2803 has got to come out. And we are back. Always use a socket when replacing a chip. And I've got a nice double wipe socket there and an NOS 2803. Let's show you what the LEDs do normally on WPC boot. There you have it. Now some games will put something up on the display while they're booting. The early ones, I think Addams Family, for example, will not put anything on the display until it's good and ready to do it. Let's see, let's get into switch test again. I'm not in an actual, or I haven't set the time and date on this. There's no point in me doing that because when the client installs his game ROM, it'll just wipe out the time and date anyway. So here you can see switch 24 is closed. And that is by virtue of my fancy, shiny, new WPC test panel from Victor, aka Dumbass on Pinside. And this tiny jumper here, closed means to close switch 24. And I've only installed the parts of this board necessary for WPC and WPC 95. The board is also applicable to System 11, and I've got another one that I'll do for that bench. But the key thing about this board is Victor has incorporated something that I've wanted for a long time, which is a method of crossing the diagonal of the switch matrix with a single key press. So let's go back to and make sure we've got this column 1 thing ironed out, and we don't. Well, that is telling me that one of the LM339s is damaged. So let me get back to it and figure that one out. I installed that new ULN 2803 and I still have the problem, so I wanted to show you this This is yet another 2803. I was making sure that the part I installed initially was good, or not bad, I'll say. Here I'm probing the input, which is what I should have done the first time. And you can see it's pulsing. And that kind of fooled me, but it's the wrong kind of pulse. Here's the other. No, that one looks about the same. That's somewhat randomness, is my darn logic probe. But why would this not be delivering the correct signal? I'm going to take a guess that it's the upstream U14, which drives that 2803. That's the problem. I did check to make sure that the 12 volt pull-up resistor, which is right here, is connected, and it is. So that, and that it's doing its job as a pull-up, so that's not the problem. Well, I am back with this CPU board that seemingly had column 1 inoperative after I'd replaced the ULN 2803. And I probably should have tested to make sure that the input to the ULN 2803 was correct before I pulled this one out. Now it turns out it was correct. Those inputs come from U14. And so this chip, and it turns out the 2803 were operating correctly. Now what was not correct, and this is a whole bunch of chasing my tail, was I noticed when I removed the ribbon to the power driver board that the signal came back for column 1. Now how can that be? Well, on dash 1 power driver boards, the column 1 and switch row 1 and switch row 2, you can see those in the green on the right, and switch column 1 go to the power driver board. And they go there to read two 4N25 opto couplers, which are connected to J110, which is a 70 volt flipper power. And when you ground or you close a flipper button switch, the 70 volts lights up an LED internal to this 4N25 opto coupler, and then it reports back a switch closure via the ribbon and those pins back here. So I thought, well, it's a power driver board problem, but this is a dash 3 power driver board and doesn't have those 4N25 opto couplers. So what's that leave? Well, somehow the ribbon that I had is defective. It must be touching somewhere internally on this IDC connector. So I tested it and it tested fine, but the tester is only a full on, and it's not going to tell me if any two strands of this thing are connected internally. So I made a new ribbon and everything is working properly now. That's how you can chase your tail as a board repair guy. So I'm going to go across the column of the switch matrix as I normally do, but now since Victor has added this row of switches up top, I can go across the opposite diagonal, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to be able to just press one button instead of two. Now, why did we go from southwest to northeast? Well, it's because on System 11 games, anyway, and prior, not all of a column will be used, but the upper right column, the upper right switch, which would be, well, I can tell you that switch 81 is generally used, or it's used more often than 88 is used, certainly. So we decided to make the single button switch matrix test go from southwest to northeast. Anyway, and we also have switch 24 turned on, and that's new from my previous tester. I never turned that on before. So this switch matrix is fully operational. I'll do this one more time. And the rest of the CPU board is operational also. Let's just do a little solenoid testing just for giggles. So that shows the SOL 1 bank. Here's the SOL 2 bank. And we're just making sure the signals are getting from the CPU board to the driver board. So those are good. Let's get to lamps and flashers simultaneously. And this shows us that I think it's SOL 3 and SOL 4 for these. And then it's the lamp and column drive from the ASIC here. Those are good. And if I might get back to general illumination, we'll make sure those signals are getting to U1 on the driver board, and they are. Outstanding. So this CPU board is 100% repaired now. Now the old 2803 was bad, so that was what was causing what the operator saw. But fun times chasing your tail.